I'm about as 80s as I can get without digging into my mum's loft to find clothes that definitely won't fit me anymore. So welcome to the 80s with my earrings and the lipstick I used to wear when I went out with my friends back in the dark days of 1988-89. And I'm here finally to talk about Rivals. Hey everyone, it's Ray and welcome to my little bookish corner of the world, where today we are going to talk book and TV show for Disney Plus and Hulu's Rivals, which came out back in October. Yes, it's taken me a while. I can't believe it's taken me so long. So why did it take so long to write this script? Seriously, I have written, edited and rewritten this script probably 6 times since I started watching the first episode back on October the 19th. Yes, it was that long ago. I guess I now have to ask myself, have I missed the boat? I think my issue was that I didn't quite know how to tackle it. With a runtime of just over 7 hours, there is a lot of content to go through, and as I discovered, a considerable number of differences between the book I adore and the show, which I am still figuring out, even having rewatched a few of the episodes in the last couple of weeks while I've been sitting back and enjoying the wonder that is redundancy. So let's get down to it before I forget again. And there is a lot to say, and I want to get it all said in a relatively logical way. So I'm going to start with the most logical piece of the puzzle, because that's what this is, a massive puzzle. The timeline. So here be spoilers, and in case you didn't gather that already, if you haven't watched it yet and you don't want to find out what happens, pause it here or scroll to the end and find out what my personal view is without the spoilers. In an interview not long after Rivals was released, producer and writer Dominic Treadwell Collins stated that he had only used half of the book in this first season. Now, Rivals is the shortest book in the Rutshire Chronicles itself. In fact, it's around 542 pages. So obviously, hopes were high that the show would be renewed and the rest of the story could then be told. Of course, it's been a couple of months since the show came out originally, and with it proving to be not only a ratings hit, but also popular with the majority of critics, not all, but most, it's been renewed for a second season, which leaves me with even more questions that I will be getting to. Of course, the whole half a book thing was a slight understatement, with the climactic scenes of the series taking place just over 200 pages from the end of the actual book. This makes me wonder if they aren't going to go straight from Rivals to Polo, though that in itself is probably going to come with a few strategic issues timeline-wise that I will be talking about. Remember, this is all very personal opinion, and if you disagree, then you can. I'm not going to sit here and state categorically that my opinion is the right one. It's just one of many. For some reason, the timeline, as I've already said, it's the first thing I'm going to come to, it feels a tiny bit messy. It's possible that this was a stylistic decision, but right from the outset, the show skips an event that I think sets the scene for many of our characters. In the book, we start by seeing Cameron Cook as she not only commences her ill-fated relationship with Tony Baddingham, but also gets recruited by Cotswold TV, which is what Corinium is called in the book. But as we all know, the series starts with an event that doesn't even happen in the book. The famous rumpy-pumpy moment on the 80s glamour craft that is the Concorde, set to the soundtrack of Addicted to Love by Robert Palmer. Such a great soundtrack, seriously.
I didn't know it was you in there.
enjoying your flight, Rupert?
Tony Battingham.
Things move incredibly quickly after this moment, with Tony setting about gathering up his dream team, starting with Cameron and then moving on to Declan, who is very unhappy working for the BBC. He's hoping that Declan's presence will give him additional kudos as he tries to retain the franchise. Though at that moment in time, there doesn't seem to be much competition, and we're obviously in the year, there's over a year to go before the franchises are going to be bid for again. The strange thing is that this particular recruitment moment never happens in the book. It's great on screen and gives us a fantastic chance to get to see Tony at his most wily.
Don't know whose bloomers are in more of a twist tonight, aunties or the Prime Minister's. We both know the BBC won't show tonight's episode.
I've said it before, Lord Bannigan, I'm happy here. And I'm not interested in commercial television.
Oh. Director General calling Saving a Naughty Boy.
And Declan in his prime, putting Paul Stratton on the spot and pushing home his own agenda.
Rampant homosexuality.
Recent studies have shown that HIV isn't exclusively a homosexual disease, Deputy Prime Minister.
Oh, but loveless rutting.
The scene has purpose, but I would have rather seen the scenes with Tony and Cameron in the US, because this really does give us insight into the darker elements of his character. From the very start, Cameron and Declan butt heads. She is the director, and he has no intention, having been promised free rein by Tony, of making his programme into a generic talk show, because there are plenty of those on TV at this moment. He's a serious journalist and has ideas of exactly where he wants to go and the direction he wants to take. So he continues with this I have gravitas moment.
I'm sorry, Tony, I produce myself.
I've got Johnny Friedlander flying over for your first interview.
Johnny Friedlander, the film star?
No, Johnny Friedlander, my dentist.
I don't interview actors.
Friedlander doesn't give interviews, not since the sex tape.
They're saying he could be the next Bond.
They'll have trouble replacing Roger.
I've been speaking to Jackie Kennedy.
This is actually no different than the book. He is shown as being very serious about his craft. He knows what he's doing, and he is determined to do it well. However, there are differences between his story in the book and his story in the show. Declan's interview with Johnny Friedlander never rakes up a sex tape scandal, which feels as though it could have been pulled directly from something that actually happened in the press in 1988, and that was Rob Lowe's sex tape experience. Declan never interviews or prepares to interview Rupert Campbell Black, despite feeling a level of animosity for the man. Declan and Cameron travel to Ireland together to interview a famous but reclusive playwright, hopeful that they can convince him to produce something for Cotswold TV. Personally, I think that adding in this little bit in Ireland would have been great for both Cameron and Declan, their character development and their relationship, because at the moment, obviously, all they are is arguing with each other back and forth. I'm the director, I'm the producer, you do what I say. Well, I'm the face of this, I'm going to do what I want, I'm the one who knows this, you've just done drama. Maud is very much like her book version. In fact, the casting for her was brilliant. She is very, very self-centered, very concerned about her youthful appearance, and she doesn't like the fact that she finds herself competing with her oldest daughter, Taggy, for attention.
Prettiest present I ever saw. Oh, let's go. What?
You're wearing Taggy's dress?
I wore this to Bono's Christmas party.
It was mine then, too.
Oh, you're so touchy these days. Look,
You are.
Finally.
show guy himself.
He's a master at this, your Declan.
I mean, is that erotic, doing a video?
Well, I think it is if you've made it for each other, or you watch it when they're away, or watch together. You've locked me in the back of Beyond, so yes, Declan, I am having a party. I need a party. You need a party, and it's our son's birthday, for God's sake.
My. Very good. I tell you what, Declan is a lucky man. What I wouldn't give to be ridden like that camel.
I don't want to be that woman who's waiting for her husband to come home. It's not me. I need to go back to work.
Well, that's good, because I resigned last night. It'll be easier for you if we go back to London.
However, there is one key difference when it comes to her storyline, and that is she never goes to London to play anything on stage. In the book, she is cast as Titania in A Midsummer Night's Dream for Cotswold TV when the actress they have hired announces that she is pregnant, she is suffering really badly from morning sickness and can no longer do the role. Is she unhappy with her move to the Cotswolds? Absolutely. But there is also that element of understanding why they had to do it. Part of it was obviously for the fact that Declan had a new job, but it was also to save their marriage because she had an affair, though there is no blackmail on Tony's part to ensure that Declan stays under his thumb. She does thrive on attention. She is quick to spend money and tell people how unhappy she is. But this one massive difference in her character, which we won't know until season 2 comes out and see if they actually use it, it's kind of like, until that point, her story has stayed pretty much loyal to the book. Now, there are a few characters I think benefited in the TV show, and one of them was Monica Baddingham. I love Monica Baddingham in the TV show. In the book, she is very biddable, except for a few scenes. She is rather absent. It's made clear from the start that Tony married her for her family and the respect that they have with the country set. And this is rather sad, really. In the TV show, the same can be said. He married her because she has money and position, and there doesn't seem to be any love lost between them, at least on Tony's side. But this Monica is stronger. She takes no nonsense and makes it clear from the start to both her son, Archie, and her husband that she will be respected. Monica in the book would never confront Tony and tell him that he either starts behaving or she'll divorce him.
You come here.
Can't believe I'm going to him for legitimacy. All he did for his status was be born into it.
It's just social currency, darling. It's the way the world works.
Public school wanker.
Well, should we send Archie to a comprehensive and save on the school fees? He'll only make you feel inferior if you give him permission. Now, deep breath, shoulders back.
Mon.
I promise we aren't always shooting things here, Valerie. But roosting on my hornbeams is a capital offence.
Dearest Mon, I'm afraid I must relay some rather difficult information to you regarding Cameron Cork.
Oh, yes?
You see, as the owner of a very popular boutique, one learns about all sorts of goings-on, and, well, the suggestion is that she might have come by her recent promotion through certain immodest means, and that perhaps your husband's head was, well, turned.
Well, that's very interesting, Valerie. Thank you.
Feel that one should exercise restraint when closer to home. After all, fraternizing with the staff can only ever lead to pain and humiliation for all concerned. I'm here to say come home. Archie's waiting in the car.
Why do I have to bring the boy to see his father being humiliated?
We both know it's not that you're angry about. But perhaps this is a test. It's time for you to decide. I've been loyal all of these years, but even my stoicism has a limit, so do be careful. Come home tonight and let's talk about it. Because if you don't, I'll take the children to my sister's in the morning.
For me, this was a really positive change. I think that she benefits greatly from this, and it's something that I wish had been in the book. It would have made her character so much better and so much more present. Freddie and Valerie are exactly as I expected. Their plot develops in the same almost plodding way in both mediums, but you can't help loving Freddie. You really can't. Their story has been added almost as a commentary on class.
You made it!
Bloody hell, Tone. Should I chuck a bucket of mud over me motor? I'm feeling very conspicuous all of a sudden.
Freddie, perfect as you are.
My sweets?
Oh, dear God.
It's Sherlock ideal, Holmes.
Tony, thank you so much for receiving us.
Need to investigate crimes against taste.
Come on.
Hello, Valerie.
Good to see you. Pleasure.
Lady Hermione, so honoured to make your acquaintance.
Mrs. Jones, I've heard so much about you.
Oh, Mr. Hampshire. I would so love to receive you.
Oh, well, fortunately for you, Mrs. Jones, hounds aren't the only thing I ride to.
I'm sure a ride with you would be delightful.
Well, what can I say? The likeness is uncanny.
Oh, what about me, Mr. Hampshire? Do I bear resemblance?
Oh, I'm sure he wishes you did. He'd be bounding down a green lawn.
Freddie is successful, but he doesn't have what Tony feels he has earned. While Tony had a rough start growing up in a council estate, his father was a self-made man. And Tony had the education, he married the right woman, he wears the suits and has the respect, sort of, if not the friendship. Meanwhile, Freddie, who Tony could have been. He was brought up in the same way, made his own money, but is nouveau riche. Because Tony married someone with position, he's kind of got in under the door, whereas Freddie now has to try and make himself fit in. He has a common accent and is considered to have no class. While Valerie is trying to prove herself wearing garish design, oh my god, her costumes, garish designer gear, renaming a listed building and bribing the council to get planning permission to change everything about it, Freddie is just himself. She wants to fit in and he wants to be accepted for who he is. In both the book and the TV show, I was rooting so badly for Freddie to find happiness. He's just a London-wide boy who made good, and people can see that about him and respect him for it. Well, to a degree. We know that Tony doesn't respect anybody. There are a few massive differences in the way that the characters and their stories are portrayed on screen, and one of the largest for this is Charles. In the book, he was always the director of religious programming, and while there are hints at his sexuality on the page, there are no relationships detailed in the book at all. In the TV show, he is demoted following a heart incident, a moment that I feel has been so beautifully portrayed on screen.
I don't exist.
Sorry?
My mother doesn't know who I am. The only person who ever loved me. And now she doesn't recognize me. And soon she'll be gone. And I'll have no one.
He's always a little catty, but the TV show gives his story more dimension. The whole New Year party rejection thing with him and Gerald and the hospital incident do not happen in the book. In fact, Gerald isn't even in the book, and his character is flatter and less stereotyped. The moment is cleverly done, giving his character far more importance to the story, whereas in the book, he is a named character but treated as less central to any events that take place.
That's Tony's brother?
Half-brother. He got a good half. The mother had a scandalous fling with an Argentinian polo player. That was the result.
Where's your gorgeous Lord and Master?
He's not here. Damn it. I have a pile of papers for him to sign and I can only pin him down at parties.
You can pin me down later if you like. What perfect timing! I was worried I was late. Meet me at the Folly at midnight.
I'll see you there.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
I wanted to ask you something first. I wondered whether I could give you this. That way we wouldn't have to sneak about. You could come and go as you pleased. You could think of it as your home too, if you like.
Well, I'm terribly flattered, obviously. But I'm sorry, Charles. I presumed you'd understand. If I want to do anything political, I need to find myself a wife.
Right. Yes, of course. How silly of me.
The relationship with Gerald, Rupert's assistant, is a sign of the times in the show, with Gerald dumping him because he wants to get into politics and knows that he will need to marry a woman in order to present the right front to potential party sponsors. Coupled with the interview at the beginning of the series with Declan grilling Paul Stratton, the current that deputy PM at that moment in time, about his views on homosexuality, many would say there was an agenda in the show. I just see it as a commentary on the time the book is based, the height of the AIDS crisis, and a time when people were terrified to be who they were. The beauty pageant has a lot to answer for in the series. In the book, it acts as something of a trigger for future events, but it is nowhere near as traumatizing. The assault that Daisy experiences at the hand of the creepy Reverend, oh my God, he's horrible, that he pretty much gets away with, feels as though it's there purely for shock value.
In life's juices. What do you think, Daisy?
Well, I think that...
Pray on next.
I offered to drive to help with your bid. Please don't be cross with me.
You've done nothing wrong. No one's going to be angry with you.
It was the Reverend Penny.
You certainly didn't lead him on. You're such a friendly girl. You know Reverend Penny's very important to us, don't you? I know you're a team player. Valued member of the Corinium family. So, let's forget this whole thing ever happened, don't you think?
Then, of course, we have the revelation about the fact that Tony intends to blackmail Declan into staying at Corinium with the use of photos of Maud and her ex-lover. Then there is the assault that Declan commits, punching the Reverend for his attack on Daisy. None of this happens in the book, and it feels as though it is sensationalist for the sake of it. There is a beauty pageant, and it is when Declan, Freddie and Rupert hatch a plan to start Ventura, but the other dramatic events shown on screen never take place. I mean, never. I wish I did, but I do not know the reason behind adding all these additional layers of complexity to proceedings. but I had to watch certain events through my fingers because they were not entertaining at all, and they felt as though they had been shoehorned in. Daisy and the Reverend it felt particularly distasteful. I know that things like this happen, and maybe this was a commentary on that fact, but the book is dramatic enough without it, and it really did churn my stomach. The whole Sarah Stratton thing, her relationship with James Vereker, is an interesting one. Everyone knows that in a Jilly Cooper book, everyone is bunking everybody else, married or not. Or at least that is how it seems, especially when we are talking about the earlier books. Everyone is interested in someone who is not their husband or wife. Sarah, who was previously seen playing a rather interesting game of tennis with Rupert Campbell Black, is now married to her ex-lover and boss, Paul. But she needs constant attention and adoration, and it seems like she's rather bored with her husband, if I'm being honest. And she's been having an affair with narcissist James Vereker since she started working with him. On both paper and celluloid, he is an unlikable, self-centered cretin who treats his wife Lizzie dreadfully and resents anyone who takes attention away from him. Truthfully, I think that they are kind of made for each other. Of course, there is a stinger in the tail as far as their relationship is concerned. That of the whole pregnancy storyline, which only occurs on screen. It doesn't happen in the book. In the TV show, we leave Sarah having discovered that she's pregnant. But is the baby James's? Is it her husband's? Or has she been playing away with someone else? Did she maybe sleep with Tony at some point to get her job on the sofa on his TV network? An intriguing storyline that we can start the season 2 with. It could almost be like something out of EastEnders, which obviously Treadwell Collins worked on, but not back in 1985, when we had the whole, who is the father of Michelle Fowler's baby? Because that was interesting. It actually had there was an entire episode almost of Michelle Fowler getting ready to go to meet the father of her baby while she was pregnant. And you had scenes of all these men that were living around Albert Square, heading off to meetings, getting in cars or taking walks. Of course, we all know it ended up being Den Watts. But at that moment, nobody had any idea who it was because, of course, the internet didn't exist. So we didn't have that facility of, there were spoiler pictures released and things like that. It wasn't that instant. There wasn't social media. So you had to wait until the programme aired to find out what happened. It was quite a good way to live in those days. Spoilers were not such a big thing because the newspapers were pretty quick, but they weren't instantaneous. In the book, Taggy and Rupert's relationship is even more of a slow burn, if you can believe it, than in the series. She is his growth arc, forcing him to acknowledge the man he is and the man he could become. I honestly think that the book does this particular relationship far better than the TV series. But then I feel that this has a lot to do with the fact that these two are the characters that I really don't feel fit the way I want them to. Yes, it is a personal feeling. Rupert is a profligate flirt, but many of those supposedly sexy expressions look a little creepy.
No, not silly enough to... friend. I'm afraid so. Rupert! My God, if I knew you were wearing this, I would have come earlier.
And the age difference seems even more apparent, despite the fact that they have upped Taggy's age.
You? With parents like yours, you must have big plans.
Oh, I'd like to be a cook. Oh. Following recipes and writing things down, I don't know what to do with myself, really.
How old are you? 19?
20.
Your whole life ahead of you.
It's 1986. You can have whatever you want.
And yeah, I do have a few questions about that one. Maybe I am judging it a little bit too harshly, but what works well on paper just feels really wrong in the context of this TV show. Will I acknowledge that an 18-year-old and a 37-year-old together are not exactly the rightest thing on the planet? Is there an imbalance when it comes to the relationship? Yes. But there was something a little bit immature about Book Rupert. He had a lot of growing up to do, and Taggy inspired him to do it. And he didn't feel oddly predatory in the process. Sadly, in the TV show, that doesn't quite feel the same way.
You're back.
Whole time I've been away, I've been thinking about your roly-poly.
Didn't get to see you enjoy it last time.
Well, why don't you stick around to see me enjoy it now? Sometimes good things do come to those who wait.
I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me. I wanna feel what
I didn't realise this was from you. I can't accept it.
It's an apology for the other day.
Fine. I'll accept the apology, just not the bracelet. I mean, are we all just alone? I mean, Rafe doesn't love me. What if no one ever loves me?
I promise you that someone will love you. She's not you. I can't breathe without you.
Everything in the show is leading up to the moment when Rupert and Taggy share their first kiss, from his gifting her a silver bracelet at Christmas and then giving her a Fabergé egg, which she doesn't realise is real. All of this happens in the book, but it's a much slower build-up, and the kiss doesn't happen, at least not then. It's also a slower realisation for both of them, and because of that, it reads much sweeter. Before I get to talking about the characters in general, there are two more things I have to comment on. The first is so gratuitous. Archie Baddingham and his strange association with Shelley and Kevin Makepeace. Archie does have a bit of a canoodle with her, but ultimately his biggest relationship is with Caitlin O'Hara. After Declan and Tony both set their sights on the same prize, the Cornwall franchise. However, the homoerotic encounter we witness between Archie and Kevin, where they are smoking weed and pleasuring each other before getting caught by a furious Tony, is one that never appears in the book. The scene is completely unnecessary titillation, and I have no idea why it was included. It feels like something that would be in a show like Skins or Sex Education, rather than something like this. Of course, there is the possibility that it is not only to highlight that Archie is confused and acting out against his father, but also to show far more clearly Tony's class snobbery. In all honesty, this particular storyline could be cut and it wouldn't make a single iota of difference to the plot, especially as the whole forbidden lovers of Caitlin and Archie is exciting enough. Meeting in secret, sleeping together in his parents' bed, the sort of stuff that teenagers did and seem to always be getting up to in books and movies. The second incident is related to the Rupert and Declan interview that never happened. In the book, anyway, it happens on screen. Every single time I think about the moment when Taggy goes to speak with Helen, asking her to convince Rupert not to go on her dad's show because she knows he is going to rip into Rupert and uncover any secrets he may have managed to keep from the public. It makes me cringe.
Tony? Tabitha's in the stables this way.
I'm here to speak to you about your ex-husband. My father's Declan O'Hara.
I've already told his office I want nothing to do with it.
I've got a really bad feeling about the interview tonight.
It's got nothing to do with me.
Talk to Rupert. Ask him to back out. Please.
I think you should leave.
I mean, you must have left him once.
Are you sleeping with him?
No.
Rupert is bad news.
I believe that people can change.
I was just like you. I told myself, nobody understands him like me. He'll change. I looked at him and I saw all this potential. And he looked at me and saw something he'd enjoy breaking. Rupert is a cancer.
In the book, Taggy meets Helen for the first time when she is with Tabitha and Marcus, Rupert's children, taking them back to Helen after they've been staying with their father for a few days. And there's another big difference. The children are mentioned but never seen, which is a shame. I honestly think because Tabitha is comedy gold in the book. She's still quite young and she's hilarious. And obviously she becomes an important character as we go through the Rutshire Chronicles, becoming a main character in one of the books and then a side character in several others. There are a lot of things about the show and how well it adapted the story onto the screen, especially when it comes to representing the 1980s. Everything from the music to the hair, makeup, jewellery and clothes. Some are awful. Look at Valerie Jones with her attempts at showing wealth with brightly coloured designer clothes, displaying massive, seriously massive, I hated the feel of them, shoulder pads and bizarre abstract shapes. Others are timeless, such as the clothes worn by Tony, Rupert, Monica, and even Taggy. Basic fashion, suits or jumpers and smart trousers. And then there is the one with the best costumes of the entire show, Cameron. Her wardrobe is stunning. From the gorgeous hairstyles to the chunky jewellery, the incredible outfits and shoes. I loved her pixie boots in the first episode, her pantsuits, her brightly coloured jumpers, and that dress she wears to the O'Hara's New Year's party is just incredible. I mean, whoever designed her costumes and found all those clothes, I would love to see their wardrobe. The 1980s were all about the music, though. As an 80s kid, I can honestly say that I have some very, very good memories of the 1980s, the music especially, and my Spotify playlist proves that I am still very much an 80s girl. Everything from Addicted to Love by Robert Palmer, Don't Leave Me This Way by the Communards, which was the song focused in the first trailer that they produced, Lady in Red by Krista Berg, which I still have nightmares about after having to dance to it at school discos, and Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf, which is a fantastic karaoke song, and that is proved greatly by Freddie. So what about the characters? As much as it frustrates me, casting choices were probably my biggest issue with the entire production, and I know that I've already mentioned a few. Again, these are my personal views, as I know that even Dame Jilly herself gave a resounding seal of approval to the options, and I am not these characters' creator. While I and most of the readers of the Rutshire Chronicles will be aware, Rupert Campbell Black is the central character of the series. Sure, there are books where he has been a character hovering around the edges, including Appassionata, Polo, and The Man Who Made Husbands Jealous, but he always makes an appearance. However, Rivals and its predecessor, Riders, are two where he has a massive role to play. I guess this is why I think it's peculiar that they would choose to cast David Tennant in the role of a character who is the antagonist. In Rivals, Tony Badingham, or Bulliam, as he was in and is in my personal copy of the book, is the man you love to hate. He has a tempestuous relationship with Cameron. His wife is of the Jolly Hockey Sticks set and has helped to make him the man he is. And his rivalry with Rupert is famous. Yet, to all intent and purpose, it feels as though Rivals is more about Tony and his various relationships than it is about anyone else. Casting David Tennant as Tony was an interesting choice. He gets a chance to throw things, to scream and shout and yell, to play around on his wife, to show his teeth and declare war on his enemies. But his character doesn't get a chance to develop. To be fair, he doesn't get much of a chance in the book either, but choosing the biggest name to play such a role, giving the impression that Tony is the central character, that took guts, especially given what the readers know. Of course, not everyone has read the book or even plans to, though they probably should, because it is a good book, and it is probably one of the best, if it's not the best, but it is one of the best in the series. I know that I have already mentioned Rupert and the choice to cast Alex Hassel. I mentioned it in my review of the trailer. For some reason, he just doesn't scream enigmatic upper crust horseman. Yeah, I know, I'm maybe judgy. Yes, we see him riding a horse, and it looks as though the scene that they use in the trailer and in the show could have been taken from an Austen adaptation, especially with the white shirt that's unbuttoned and the jodhpurs and everything else. Unfortunately, for me, he doesn't scream Rupert Campbell Black. While many people have said, we never get a description of Rupert, I'm here to state categorically, we do. That is not the case at all. Admittedly, I'm going to pull an example right now from Polo, which is the sequel, but there are plenty of others, including in Rivals. As he reached the top of the aisle, the dull winter light fell on his blonde hair and the crow's feet around his hard, dissipated blue eyes. That's not talking about anybody else, that is talking about Rupert. Not being familiar with Hassel's work before this, I can't say whether he was typecast or not. I know that he was in The Boys, but I haven't actually watched much past the first couple of episodes. It's one of those shows I keep on meaning to watch and haven't quite got to yet. But the looks he gives Taggy when he's showing his interest in her actually creep me out. Far more than they inspire any naughty thoughts whatsoever. But then I wonder if there is a hidden intent in this, whether we're meant to be creeped out by this older man lusting for after a woman young enough to be his daughter, though his children are considerably younger. Rivals is, to a degree, meant to be Rupert's redemption arc, after the absolute show he made of his life and others in Riders. Yet there are so many moments in Rivals, or at least this version of it, the TV version, that make you want to walk away and hope to never see him again. Yeah, that is really judgy, but I'm being honest. He does have a few redeeming scenes, such as after the New Year's party, when he plays the drunk for the cameras in order to get the film from the paparazzi of Charles being taken away in an ambulance. He sees himself through Taggy's eyes, and he wants to prove that he isn't only a skirt-chasing MP who cares about nothing but the next woman and seeking his own pleasure. Of course, that doesn't mean he isn't a complete jerk for the majority of the show. So, what exactly is my issue with Alex Hassel's acting? I think it's the fact that he looks so much older and less smooth than the man I always imagined as Rupert Campbell Black. Does that mean I think that Marcus Gilbert's casting in Riders was perfect? Absolutely not. Despite Rupert being a decidedly unlikable character, you still want to feel attracted to him because that's sort of his core reason for being. He's described as the most beautiful man, and yes, I know I've already said this, and I just personally do not see it in this particular casting. As I've already brought it up, I will continue in that vein because I have to. On the topic of this redemption scene at the O'Hara party, it doesn't happen in the book. Sorry to disappoint anybody who hoped it did. Yes, the party happens and Cameron makes a stunning entrance and Taggy does the catering and Rupert is there, but the scene with Charles, the moment with the fake drunken routine, none of this occurs. It was put there to give us an opportunity to see Rupert show his nice side. It was his I can be a good guy moment. Taggy O'Hara. I have to talk about her. I've talked about Rupert. Why am I so confused by you? Seriously, my bafflement began after she explained to Lizzie Verica that she was 20. I know it was likely done for reasons, probably to make the relationship with Rupert, which is endgame, seem more acceptable. But could they not have made her 19? Or maybe changed things up and made her older brother older, or her older than Patrick? This whole near twin sibling thing doesn't work. We have Taggy telling Lizzie that she's 20, and then we have the family celebrating her brother Patrick's 21st birthday. I know that siblings can be born that close together. Biologically, they can be born 8 or 9 months apart because not all babies are born to the schedule that the calendar dictates. But that they decided to change this particular thing in this case felt unnecessary. And because I am that person, it has stuck in my head and will not go away. Her age has just stuck in my head and I can't stop thinking about how it doesn't work. Taggy is meant to be all legs and awkward. Often due to the horse-loving nature of many of the characters, she is described as a young colt because she is the cliche of a clumsy girl who is pretty and a little bit different. However, her difference is that she is a dyslexic girl who struggled at school in a family of academically skilled people. So she is seen as the odd one out, the oddity.
Exciting things are going to happen to us in a place like this. Amazing. Hello, Rupert.
Lizzie, darling, we were just passing.
Oh,
Oof, look at all this.
If it's a neighbourhood dinner party, why didn't Valerie Jones invite you down me?
I don't know, Mummy.
She did. I said we couldn't do it. What? I've work to do.
I never get to go anywhere. I mean, how can we meet anyone if you're going to turn down everything just to prepare your stupid programme?
My stupid programme is all just paying the bills on this rotting pile of bricks, and all you do is spend money. I mean, why the fuck do we own a harp?
Oh, well, you want to take my music away from me? It's all that I have left.
I have to go to work.
No, I'm still talking to you.
We can talk about it later. Good luck, Tag.
Bye. You know, it's a good job that you bought a priory, because I might as well be a nun. You know, he's still punishing me. I mean, when is it going to stop?
Mr. Campbell Black, May I interest you in some pudding?
Yes, you can.
Right, next stop, Colchester Rugby Club. Follow the road for 3 miles, then take the second left. You'll see the pub on the corner.
She is the caregiver of the O'Hara family. There is no denying it. She is the centre of it all. She is the one that holds things together. She is the comfort and everything that they need. For me, though, the best casting in this is Lizzie and Freddie. In the book, they are a rather comedic pair, though obviously they're not a pair. Lizzie is married to James. Freddie is married to Valerie. They're a little bumbling, but also incredibly sweet. And this is reflected greatly in the actors they cast to play the roles. Catherine Parkinson is always a little bit soft-spoken, a tiny bit clumsy, and holding her own in a miserable marriage to a man who cares more about how he appears on camera than how unhappy and unsatisfied his wife may be. When I first heard they'd cast Danny Dyer as Freddie Jones, I was not convinced. Have to be completely honest, I really wasn't. It was like, oh God, I'm so not watching that. Granted, I had only seen him playing a few Cockney wide boys in films like High Heels and Low Lives, which I actually really enjoy, to be fair, and as landlord Mick Carter in EastEnders. So how could he possibly play the beloved and charming Freddie Jones? Well, it turns out he's actually ideal in the role, and when he's on screen, whether it's with Lisa McGrillis as his wife or Catherine Parkinson as his partner in crime, they work perfectly. Even though we know they are contemplating cheating on their respective partners, they belong together, and it's apparent from the moment they meet over boiled potatoes at the Baddingham garden party.
My husband tells me you're one of the most powerful men in England.
Yeah, I suppose I am.
And I expect you're allowed a few potatoes.
1 potato, 2 potato, 3. Shall we find my booze?
Oh,
Don't tell Valerie.
I wouldn't dream of it. Yeah. James was cross with me for having a ladder in my totes.
Really?
Yeah.
I love a ladder. Stairway to heaven and all that.
Two sugars. The shock.
Thank you. I only come round to give you this.
Oh, gosh, it's... What is it?
It's a word processor, sort of like a fancy electric typewriter. So you don't have to worry about any more ink-based accidents.
Oh, gosh, Freddie, that's so...
You have a talent, Lizzie. It should be encouraged.
Freddie Jones, what are you doing here?
Long, hard day at the coalface. I saw you running down the platform.
Oh, lunch ran on. I was plied with champagne and completely lost track of time.
Gentleman buying you champagne, no less than you deserve.
Today was good. I was actually celebrating with my agent, and she loved the first 3 chapters of my book.
Well, why don't we continue the celebration in first class?
I only have a second-class ticket.
If the conductor comes, I'll pay the difference.
Unfortunately, I still have a lot of questions, not only about the way the show ended with Tony's life hanging in the balance, an event that happens a lot earlier in the book and actually doesn't end that well for Cameron, as she's the one on the end of the assault, not the other way round, further highlighting how vicious and ruthless Tony can be, even towards those he claims to care for, but also about where the show is going to go next. I know we have Polo after Rivals, but And it's a really big one this time. That book runs concurrently with Rivals. In fact, it starts a little bit before the events of Rivals begin and concludes a few years after the results of the franchise competition are announced and the Taggy and Rupert relationship situation is resolved. So where are we going to go with this? Are the storylines going to be changed a little? Especially given that revelation at the end of chapter 4, you know, the whole Perdita name burning in the fire when Declan decides not to reveal all in an interview. I am going to admit right now that I was dismissive of the show before I saw it. Adaptations of my favourite pieces of literature don't tend to go very well, at least as far as I'm concerned. The Changeover is probably the best example of that, and it had a great cast. Timothy Spall was in it, for goodness sake. They just made it into something that wasn't the core of the story. In fact, it lost it completely. But that's a video for another time, if I get around to it, and if I can bring myself to watch the film again. This happens to be a good adaptation. Do I think that they changed some elements for the sake of it? Yes, I really do. I've already talked about them. The whole Daisy incident, for example. The moment with Helen and Taggy, the whole Archie and the Makepeaces plot. Yet none of that was necessary and added nothing to the story. It certainly didn't improve what was already a strong storyline. However, at the heart of it, this is Jilly Cooper's Rivals, just with a few additions. Yes, unnecessary ones, but again, I don't need to say it again. Sadly, the casting of the characters who should be the leads is not what I personally would have wanted. Could we have had a blonde Rupert and a lanky cult-like Taggy? That would have made things better for me. I'm sure we could have done. But I didn't do the casting, and it's made for some interesting debates about adaptations and how they could and should be done. Because not everything can be precise or exactly as me or any other reader would like it. So there you go. I promised you a video about Rivals. I could have done an entire summary about every single episode, and I started writing that and it took me 6 weeks. So here we are. Let me know what you think, and if you've watched it or you're planning to watch it, please do let me know what you think about it afterwards. Have you read the book? Did you like it? Do you think that this is a faithful enough adaptation? What would you have changed? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe, and I will see you really soon. Bye.